I should have known something was wrong when Catherine insisted I come to dinner. My wife never wanted me anywhere near her work events. For 5 years, she'd kept that part of her life sealed off like a watertight compartment. She'd come home late, smelling of expensive wine and other people's cigarettes, and when I'd ask how it went, she'd give me a smile that didn't reach her eyes and say, "You know how these things are?" I didn't know. That was the point. But that Tuesday in March, she called me at the office and said, "Daniel wants to meet you. Dinner at Rouge tonight, 8 o'clock. Wear the Tom Ford." Daniel Bishop, her boss. The man whose name came up in every third sentence she spoke. Daniel thinks this. Daniel said that. Daniel closed the Mercado deal. Daniel got us the Jensen account. "Why does he want to meet me?" I asked. "Does it matter?" Her voice had that edge it got when she didn't want questions. "It's important, Mark. Don't embarrass me." I hung up and stared at my computer screen. The quarterly projections blurred into meaningless numbers. Catherine never asked me to her company events, never introduced me to her colleagues, never brought her work home except in the form of complaints about incompetent subordinates and praise for Daniel's genius. Something was wrong. I should have trusted that instinct. I should have driven home, packed a bag, and walked out before the evening even started. But I didn't. I'm good at reading rooms, reading people, finding the weak points in negotiations, and pressing until something breaks. I thought I could handle one dinner. I was wrong. Rouge was the kind of restaurant where the lighting cost more than most people's cars. Amber sconces on walls of reclaimed brick, tables far enough apart that you couldn't hear other conversations, waiters who moved like shadows. Catherine loved it here. She'd brought me twice in our 12 years of marriage, both times when she wanted something. She was already at the table when I arrived. She'd changed since morning into a black dress I'd never seen before, cut low enough to make a point. Her hair was down, which she never did for work. She was laughing at something the man across from her had said. Daniel Bishop. I'd seen photos on the company website, but they didn't capture the reality of him. He was stocky, broad-shouldered, with the kind of physical presence that commanded space. His suit probably cost $5,000. His watch definitely cost more. He had the look of a man who'd never heard the word no and wouldn't have recognized it if he had. "Mark." Catherine's smile was bright and false. "You made it. This is Daniel." "Daniel. My husband." Daniel stood and offered his hand. His grip was firm enough to send a message. "The famous Mark Easton. Catherine talks about you constantly." "Does she?" I sat down across from him, next to Catherine. Her perfume was different too. Something heavier, more obvious. All good things. Daniel's smile showed too many teeth. "She says you're some kind of genius consultant. Turn failing companies around with nothing but a PowerPoint and sheer force of will." "I've had some success. Modest, too." He picked up his wine glass. It was already half empty. "I like that. Too many people in this city think they're God's gift. Nice to meet someone with some humility." Catherine laughed. She put her hand on Daniel's arm. The gesture was casual, familiar. Her wedding ring caught the light. I watched them. I'm good at watching. It's part of what I do. Observe, analyze, find the patterns others miss. And the pattern here was clear as glass. The way she angled her body toward him instead of me. The way he looked at her like he owned her. The way neither of them seemed to remember I was sitting 3 feet away. 2 more people arrived. Jessica from Catherine's department, a nervous woman in her 30s who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else, and Tom, one of Daniel's vice presidents, who spent the first 10 minutes talking about his Porsche. The waiter took our orders. Catherine ordered for me without asking what I wanted. Daniel found this amusing. "See, that's the sign of a long marriage," he said. "She knows what you want before you do." "Sometimes what people want and what's good for them are different things," I said. Catherine's hand tightened on her wine glass. "Mark's being philosophical tonight. Nothing wrong with philosophy. Daniel leaned back in his chair. As long as it doesn't get in the way of enjoying life. That's the problem with too much thinking. You miss the good parts. What good parts? The fun parts. The spontaneous parts. He glanced at Catherine. Something passed between them, quick and intimate. The parts that make you feel alive. Jessica cleared her throat. Tom kept talking about his Porsche. I picked up my wine glass and took a long drink. The first course arrived. Some kind of foam on a plate that probably had a name I couldn't pronounce. Daniel told a story about a client meeting in Dubai. Catherine laughed in all the right places. Jessica pushed her foam around with a fork. Tom kept talking about his Porsche. I ate and watched and waited. The second course came. Fish, I think. It didn't matter. Daniel had moved on to another story, this one about a competitor who'd tried to poach Catherine for their firm. They offered her 20% more, he said. Can you believe that? 20%. And you know what she told them? No, I said. What did she tell them? She said no amount of money could replace the working relationship we have. That's loyalty. That's rare these days. Catherine smiled. Daniel's been a great mentor. I've learned so much from him. I bet you have. She caught something in my tone. Her eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Just agreeing with you. Daniel raised his glass. To mentorship, and to loyal employees who know a good thing when they've got it. Everyone drank. Catherine's hand found Daniel's under the table. I saw it. She didn't realize I could see it from my angle, but I could. Her fingers threaded through his, a gentle squeeze. Something cold settled in my chest. The main course arrived. Steak. Finally something I recognized. Daniel carved into his like he was performing surgery. Catherine barely touched hers. Jessica excused herself to the bathroom and stayed gone for 15 minutes. Tom was finally done talking about his Porsche and had moved on to his boat. So, Mark, Daniel said, pointing his knife at me. Catherine tells me you're quite the expert in your field. Corporate turnarounds, right? Salvaging failing businesses. That's part of it. Must be satisfying, being the hero who rides in and saves the day. He took a bite of steak, chewed slowly. Catherine says you're brilliant at it. Says you can read a balance sheet like most people read the newspaper. She's generous. Is she? He smiled. I don't know about that. Catherine's not really the generous type. She's more the honest type. Brutally honest sometimes. No filter. I love that about her. Catherine laughed. It sounded forced. Daniel, stop. What? It's true. You tell it like it is. That's what makes you so good at your job. He turned back to me. She told me this great story the other day about your honeymoon. Something about a hotel room and a misunderstanding with room service? I put down my fork. Did she? Oh yeah, it was hilarious. Apparently you ordered champagne and they brought beer, and you were too polite to send it back. So you both spent your wedding night drinking Budweiser and watching Spanish television. That story was true. It had also been private. Something we'd laughed about later, in bed, her head on my chest. One of the few good memories I had left. Catherine shares a lot with the office, apparently, I said. We're very close. Daniel's smile didn't waver. She's not just an employee, she's family. We tell each other everything. Catherine was staring at her plate. Her face had gone red. Everything? I asked. Everything. Daniel raised his glass again, to openness, to honesty, to relationships built on trust and communication. He drank. Catherine drank. Jessica, who'd just returned from the bathroom, drank without knowing what she was toasting. Tom drank and started talking about his boat. I didn't drink. I watched Daniel's face, the satisfaction in his eyes, the casual cruelty of his smile. I watched Catherine, the way she couldn't look at me, the way her hand trembled as she set down her glass. And I understood. This wasn't a dinner. It was a performance. Daniel was showing me something, and Catherine was letting him. They wanted me to know. They wanted me to sit here and smile and pretend I didn't understand what was happening. The waiter cleared our plates. Daniel ordered dessert for the table, some kind of chocolate thing that would take 20 minutes to prepare. 20 more minutes of this. I could leave. I should leave. Stand up, walk out, let them enjoy their victory. But I didn't move. "So, Catherine," I said. My voice sounded normal, calm. "How long have you been telling Daniel our private stories?" She looked up. "What?" "Our honeymoon story, the hotel mix-up. When did you tell him that?" It was just a funny story, Mark. I wasn't." "What other stories have you told him?" Daniel laughed. "Come on, Mark. Don't be so sensitive. Married people tell stories. It's what they do." The table went silent. Jessica froze with her wine glass halfway to her mouth. Tom stopped talking about his boat. Catherine's face went from red to white. Daniel's smile got wider. "That depends on the marriage, I guess." "Does it?" I looked at Catherine. She was staring at the table, her hands clenched in her lap. "Catherine, does it depend on the marriage?" "Mark, please. Please what? Please don't ask questions. Please don't embarrass you." I laughed. It sounded strange even to me. "You invited me here. You insisted I come. You dressed up and ordered for me and sat there holding his hand under the table. So, please what, exactly?" "You're being paranoid," she said quietly. "Am I?" Daniel set down his glass. "Look, Mark, I think you're misreading the situation." "Shut up!" His eyebrows went up. "Excuse me? I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to my wife." I kept my eyes on Catherine. "Tell me I'm paranoid. Tell me I'm imagining things." Jessica gasped. Tom made a strangled noise. Catherine's eyes finally met mine, and in them I saw everything I needed to know. "Mark!" I stood up. My chair scraped against the floor loud enough to turn heads at nearby tables. "How long?" "Mark, sit down." "How long, Catherine?" She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came out. Daniel stood too. "I think we all need to calm down." 6 months, Catherine said quietly. The words hung in the air like smoke. 6 months, I repeated. "I didn't mean for it to happen, we work together all the time and you're never around and it just happened." "It just happened," I laughed again. 6 months of it just happening, 6 months of coming home late and smelling like him, 6 months of lying to my face every single day. "I didn't want to hurt you." Daniel's face had gone hard. "Watch how you talk to her." "Or what?" I turned to him. "You'll do what, exactly? You've already done the worst thing you could do. You've already taken her. Congratulations. She's all yours." "Mark." Catherine reached for my arm. I pulled away. "Don't touch me. Don't ever touch me again." I pulled out my wallet, threw $300 on the table. It was more than enough to cover my portion of the meal. Then I looked at Daniel, really looked at him, and saw a man who thought he'd won. He had no idea. "Enjoy your dessert," I said. "Both of you. I hope it's worth it." I walked out of Rouge and into the cold March night. Behind me, I heard Catherine calling my name. I didn't look back. I pulled out my phone and made one call. "It's me," I said when the voice answered. "I need everything you can find on Daniel Bishop. Employment history, financial records, legal issues, anything questionable. I need it yesterday." "How deep do you want me to go?" asked Marcus Chen, the private investigator I'd used for business deals. "All the way down. I want to know every secret he's ever kept." "And Catherine?" I stopped walking. The street was empty, the city sounds muted by distance. "Her too." "Mark, are you sure?" "I'm sure. Get me everything." I hung up and stood there in the cold, staring at nothing. Behind me, in that warm restaurant with its expensive lighting and its carefully curated ambiance, Catherine and Daniel were probably trying to explain to Jessica and Tom what had just happened. They were probably embarrassed, uncomfortable. worried about what I might do. They should be. I started walking again. I had work to do. As the story unfolds, hit the hype button, like, subscribe, and write in the comments. Would you forgive them or walk away? I didn't go home that night. Home was a 3-story colonial in the suburbs with a manicured lawn and plantation shutters and all the trappings of a successful marriage. Home was where Catherine would eventually return, full of excuses and explanations and tears. Home was where she'd expect to find me, where we'd have the scene she'd probably been rehearsing in her head since I walked out of Rouge. I went to my office instead. The building was nearly empty at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday. Just the night security guard, an older man named Pete, who barely looked up from his crossword puzzle as I walked past. The elevator hummed as it carried me to the 14th floor. The doors opened onto darkness and silence. I didn't turn on the main lights, just the desk lamp in my office, a pool of yellow in the surrounding black. I sat down and opened my laptop and started making lists. That's what I do. That's how I think. Break the problem down into components, identify the variables, find the leverage points, apply pressure until something breaks. The problem? My wife had been sleeping with her boss for 6 months. The variables: Catherine's job, her reputation, her finances, Daniel's position, his career, his secrets. The interconnected web of professional relationships that bound them together. The leverage points: I'd find them. Chen would find them. And then I'd apply pressure until everything they'd built together came crashing down. My phone buzzed. Catherine. I declined the call. It buzzed again 30 seconds later. Declined. Again. Declined. After the 5th call, I turned it off. The computer screen glowed in the darkness. I opened a new document and started typing. Everything I knew about Daniel Bishop. Everything Catherine had told me over the past year. Every casual comment, every dinner story, every complaint about work that mentioned his name. It was amazing how much information people gave away without realizing it. Catherine had painted a detailed picture of Daniel's life, his habits, his business dealings. She'd told me about the Mercado deal, how Daniel had pushed through a merger despite concerns about the target company's financials. She'd mentioned the Jensen account, how Daniel had personally wooed the client away from a competitor with promises that might have crossed ethical lines. She'd laughed about Daniel's expense reports, how he charged everything to the company card and dared accounting to question him. I typed it all out. Names, dates, details. The raw material Chen would need to build a case. At midnight, my office phone rang. I stared at it, watching the display light up with Catherine's cell number. On the 10th ring, I picked up. What? Mark, please. I need to talk to you. You had 6 months to talk to me. It wasn't like that. It's complicated. It's really not complicated at all. Silence. I could hear her breathing, sharp and quick. She was crying. I felt nothing. Where are you? She asked finally. Doesn't matter. Are you coming home? No. Mark, please. We need to talk about this. We need to figure out. There's nothing to figure out. You made your choice. It was a mistake. I know that now. I'll end it. I'll quit my job if I have to. Just please, don't quit your job. You're going to need it. What does that mean? I hung up. The phone rang again immediately. I unplugged it from the wall. At 2 a.m., Chen sent an email. The subject line was simple. First pass. I opened the attachment. 3 pages of preliminary information, the kind of surface-level details anyone could find with basic research. Daniel Bishop's employment history, his marriage and divorce records, 2 divorces, both messy. His current address, a penthouse in the financial district. His car, his club memberships, his charitable donations. Nothing useful yet. But Chen's note at the bottom was more promising. Found some interesting inconsistencies in his financial disclosures. We'll dig deeper tomorrow. Also found a former employee willing to talk. Meeting her Thursday. I read it 3 times, memorizing every detail. Then I started a new search on my own computer. Catherine's company, Vanguard PR, was publicly traded, which meant their executive compensation was public record. I pulled up the most recent proxy statement and found Daniel's salary. $2.4 million in base pay, plus bonuses and stock options that brought his total compensation to nearly $5 million. $5 million a year, and he was still padding his expense reports. That meant either he was greedy beyond reason, or he was hiding something. Maybe both. I dug deeper. Vanguard's stock price had been climbing steadily for 3 years, driven largely by their success in winning high-profile clients. Daniel's division had been particularly successful, landing accounts that had historically gone to their larger competitors. Too successful, maybe. The kind of success that raised questions. I made more notes, more names, more connections, more threads to pull. At 4 a.m., I finally closed my laptop. My eyes burned. My head ached. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling and thought about Catherine. We'd met in college, two ambitious kids who thought they were smarter than everyone else. She'd been studying public relations. I'd been studying business. We'd bonded over coffee and late-night study sessions, and a shared contempt for mediocrity. After graduation, we'd both landed good jobs. We'd gotten married in a ceremony her parents paid for, honeymooned in Mexico, moved into a starter home in the suburbs. For the first 5 years, it had been good. Not perfect, but good. We'd pushed each other, celebrated each other's successes, built something together. Then Catherine got promoted, and promoted again. And somewhere along the way, she'd started looking at me differently, like I was holding her back, like I was the anchor keeping her from floating away to something better. And she'd found Daniel. I wondered when she'd decided to cheat. Had it been a gradual slide, a series of small compromises that added up to betrayal? Or had it been a single moment, a decision made in an instant? Did it matter? The office was cold. I pulled my jacket tighter and tried to sleep in my chair. I couldn't. My mind kept circling back to Rouge, to Daniel's smile, to Catherine's hand under the table, to the way they'd looked at each other, like I wasn't even there. They'd humiliated me, not by having an affair, that was simple betrayal, but by inviting me to dinner, by making me sit there while they showed off their relationship, by laughing at my stories and toasting to honesty and trust while lying to my face. That was what I couldn't forgive. At 7 a.m., I gave up trying to sleep. I showered in the executive bathroom, used the razor I kept in my desk for emergency meetings, changed into the spare suit I kept in my office closet. By 8, I looked almost human. I made coffee in the break room, strong and black. I stood at the window and watched the city wake up. Cars filling the streets, people walking to work, the normal rhythms of a normal day. My phone was still off. I turned it on. 17 missed calls from Catherine, 8 voicemails, a dozen text messages. I deleted them all without reading them. Chen called at 9. "You sound like hell," he said. "I've had better nights. What have you got?" "Not much yet, but I'm working on it. I've got meetings lined up with 3 former Vanguard employees, all from Daniel's division. And I'm pulling his financial records now. Should have something more concrete by end of day." "What about Catherine? What do you want to know?" "Everything. Her accounts, her expenses, her communications. I need to know if she's planning anything." "Like what?" "Like divorce, like emptying our joint accounts, like anything that might complicate what I'm about to do." Silence. Then, "Mark, what are you about to do?" "Whatever it takes." "That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting. Just find me what I need." I hung up and stared out the window some more. The city looked different in daylight. Harsher, more honest. My assistant, Diane, arrived at 9:30. She took one look at me and frowned. "Rough night?" "Something like that." "Want to talk about it?" "No." "Fair enough. You've got a meeting at 11 with the Patterson people. And Catherine called here looking for you. 3 times. I told her you were unavailable. If she calls again, tell her the same thing. Diane studied my face. She'd worked for me for 6 years. She'd learned to read my moods, to know when to push and when to back off. She backed off now. Understood. Want me to reschedule Patterson? No, I'll be there. She nodded and left. I drank my coffee and went back to my lists. By the time the Patterson meeting rolled around, I'd added another 2 pages of notes. The meeting went well. It always did. I'm good at what I do. I can walk into a room full of worried executives and find the solution they couldn't see. I can break down complex problems into simple steps. I can make people believe that success is possible, even when they're staring at bankruptcy. Today, I did it on autopilot. Half my mind was in the conference room, talking about market analysis and restructuring plans. The other half was calculating angles, measuring distances, finding the weak points in Daniel's armor. After the meeting, I went back to my office. Chen called again at 3. Got something, he said. Not sure what it means yet, but it's interesting. Tell me. Daniel's been moving money. Lots of money. He's got 3 offshore accounts that I can find, probably more that I can't. And he's been transferring funds regularly. Small amounts, nothing that would trigger automatic reporting, but it adds up. We're talking $500,000 over the past year. Laundering? Maybe. Or hiding assets from someone. His divorce was final 2 years ago, so it's probably not his ex-wife. Could be he's skimming from the company, or it could be legitimate and he just likes privacy. Keep digging. What about the employees you're meeting with? First one's in an hour. I'll call you after. He hung up. I sat there thinking about offshore accounts and hidden money. Daniel was dirty. I'd known it from the moment I met him, from the casual way he'd flaunted his affair with my wife, from the arrogance that radiated from him like heat. Now, I just had to prove it. My phone buzzed. A text from Catherine. Please come home, we need to talk, I love you. I stared at the words until they stopped meaning anything. Then I deleted the message and got back to work. The news broke Wednesday morning. I was at my office, halfway through a client presentation, when my phone started buzzing. Text after text, all from news alerts. I ignored them until the meeting ended, then checked my phone in the hallway. Vanguard executive suspended amid embezzlement allegations. PR firm launches investigation into financial irregularities. Sources, Vanguard EVP accused of harassment, fraud. I opened the articles and read them carefully. The stories were light on details. The investigation had just started, but they confirmed the board had received the report and was taking it seriously. Daniel had been placed on administrative leave pending the investigation. Several former employees had come forward with additional allegations. It was happening. Faster than I'd expected, actually. The board must have found the evidence compelling enough to act immediately. My phone rang. Chen. You seeing this? He asked. Yeah. They moved fast. The media's all over it. I've already gotten 3 calls from reporters asking for comment. I'm staying silent, obviously, but this is going to get bigger before it gets smaller. Good. Mark, you should know. People are going to start looking for the source of the allegations. Anonymous tips don't stay anonymous forever. You might want to prepare for the possibility that this comes back to you. I'm not worried. You should be. Daniel's not going to go down quietly. He'll hire expensive lawyers. He'll go after anyone he thinks might have leaked information. If he figures out you're involved, let him come after me. I didn't do anything illegal. I just reported crimes I became aware of. How did you become aware of them? I hesitated. The keylogger. Breaking into Daniel's office. Those weren't exactly legal activities. Chen, that's what I thought. Mark, you need to be careful. If this goes to trial, if Daniel's lawyers start deposing people, they're going to find out about the keylogger, and then you've got problems. I'll deal with it if it happens. Famous last words. He hung up. I stood in the hallway and thought about what he'd said. He was right, of course. I'd crossed lines to get the evidence against Daniel. If those methods came to light, I could face legal trouble myself, but I'd known that risk when I started, and I'd decided it was worth it. My phone buzzed again, a text from an unknown number. "You did this. We need to talk." Daniel. I didn't respond. Let him stew in uncertainty. Let him wonder who'd betrayed him, who'd gathered the evidence, who'd ended his career. Another text. "I know it was you. Catherine told me about your visit to my office." I frowned. What visit? I hadn't been to Daniel's office except that one night, and Catherine didn't know about that, unless she'd guessed, unless she'd put the pieces together. My phone rang, Daniel's number. I answered. "What do you want?" "You broke into my office. You planted surveillance equipment. You stole private information. I have no idea what you're talking about." "Don't play dumb. Catherine told me you were asking about my schedule, my habits. She told me you were planning something. I just didn't think you'd go this far. I reported illegal activity to your company's board. That's all I did." "Bullshit. You broke into my office. That's illegal entry. That's theft. I'm going to the police." "Go ahead. Tell them how you found out. Explain why you think I broke into your office. I'm sure they'll be very interested in hearing about the evidence of embezzlement I supposedly found there." Silence. "You think you're so smart," Daniel said finally. "You think you've won. But this isn't over. I have resources. I have lawyers. I'm going to destroy you." "Good luck with that. I hear it's hard to afford lawyers when you're under criminal investigation and your assets are frozen." "The board hasn't frozen anything. Yet. But they will. Once the investigation expands, once they realize how much you stole, they'll freeze everything. Your bank accounts, your stock options, your pension, all of it. And then you'll have nothing except a public defender and a lot of questions you can't answer." "I didn't do anything wrong. Those allegations are lies." "Are they? Because I've seen the evidence. It's pretty convincing." "Evidence can be faked." "True. But not evidence from multiple independent sources, not testimony from multiple victims, not bank records that match up with suspicious transfers. The board's going to find all of it, Daniel. And when they do, you're going to prison." I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking. Adrenaline, probably. The confrontation had been more intense than I'd expected. Daniel was scared, desperate. That made him dangerous. But it also made him predictable. Scared people made mistakes. Desperate people acted rashly. I just had to wait for Daniel to make his mistake. I went back to work, tried to focus on client presentations and quarterly reports. But my mind kept drifting to Daniel, to Catherine, to the elaborate revenge I'd set in motion. By afternoon, more news broke. The SEC had opened an investigation into Vanguard's financial practices. Federal prosecutors were reviewing the evidence. 3 more former employees had come forward with allegations against Daniel. The story had taken on a life of its own. What started as an internal investigation was now a full-blown scandal. Vanguard's stock price dropped 5%. The CEO issued a statement promising full cooperation with investigators and commitment to ethical business practices. Daniel was finished. Even if the criminal charges didn't stick, and they probably would, his career was over. No company would hire him after this. No board would give him a position. He'd spend years fighting legal battles, hemorrhaging money on lawyers, watching his reputation disintegrate. I should have felt satisfied. This was what I'd wanted. Complete destruction of the man who destroyed my marriage. But I felt hollow, empty, like I'd won a prize I no longer wanted. My phone buzzed. "Catherine." "I need to see you," she said when I answered. "Why?" "Because I'm scared. The investigators want to talk to me. They think I might know about about what he did." "Do you?" "No! Of course not. I didn't know about any of it. But they don't believe me. They think because we were involved, that I must have known." "What do you want me to do about it?" "I don't know. I just need someone to talk to. Please, Mark. I'm falling apart here." I sighed. Where are you? Home. Our home. I'll be there in an hour. The investigation moved quickly. By Friday, federal prosecutors had seized Daniel's financial records and were examining years of transactions. The media coverage intensified. Daniel's photo was everywhere, on news websites, in newspapers, on television. Always the same image, his official Vanguard headshot, the one where he looked confident and successful. I wondered how he felt seeing that photo attached to headlines about embezzlement and fraud, seeing his face become synonymous with corporate crime. Catherine called me Saturday morning. They arrested Daniel, she said. I saw. I mean, they actually arrested him. FBI agents showed up at his apartment at 6 a.m. Handcuffs, the whole thing. His lawyer's saying it's a publicity stunt, that the charges won't stick, but Mark, this is real. This is actually happening. Good. Is it? Is it good that Daniel's life is being destroyed? That he's facing decades in prison? He's facing consequences for his actions. That's how justice works. But you started this. You reported him. You gathered the evidence. Doesn't that make you responsible for what happens next? I thought about that. Maybe. But I didn't make him embezzle millions of dollars. I didn't make him harass employees. I just exposed what was already there. But you did it for revenge, not for justice, for revenge. Does my motivation matter? The crimes were still crimes. The victims were still hurt. The company was still defrauded. I guess not. She sighed. I'm being deposed Monday. My lawyer says to just tell the truth and everything will be fine. But I'm scared, Mark. What if they don't believe me? What if they think I was involved? Were you? No. How many times do I have to say it? Then you have nothing to worry about. That's not how the legal system works. Innocent people get charged with crimes all the time. You know that. I did know that. I'd seen it happen. Overzealous prosecutors building cases on circumstantial evidence, juries convicting based on association rather than proof. Get a good lawyer, I said. Answer their questions carefully. Don't volunteer information. And most importantly, don't lie. Even about small things. They'll catch you and use it against you. I'm not going to lie. I don't have anything to lie about. Good. Silence. Then, Mark, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Okay. Did you manufacture any evidence against Daniel? Did you plant anything or fake documents or do anything that could come back on you? I thought about the forged documents I'd deleted, the ones showing Catherine's involvement. If I'd sent those to the board, if they'd become part of the investigation, I'd be guilty of exactly what she was asking about. But I'd deleted them. I'd chosen not to cross that final line. No, I said. Everything I reported was real. You swear? I swear. Okay, I believe you. After we hung up, I sat and thought about that last exchange. Catherine still trusted me. After everything that had happened, after the divorce, after I'd destroyed her lover's life, she still believed me when I said I hadn't faked evidence. Maybe she was naive, or maybe she knew me better than I thought. Monday morning, Chen called with an update. The prosecutors have expanded their investigation to include Vanguard's executive team. They're looking at whether anyone else knew about Daniel's activities and failed to report them. Who are they targeting? Daniel's direct reports mostly, the people who worked closest with him, and Mark. Catherine's name is on the list. She didn't know anything. Maybe not, but she's going to have to prove that. And it's not going to be easy. What do you mean? I mean, the prosecutors have records showing Catherine approved expense reports that were clearly fraudulent. Hotel stays that were actually personal vacations. Restaurant bills that couldn't possibly have been business meals. She signed off on all of them. She was probably just rubber stamping what Daniel gave her. He was her boss. She trusted him. That's a defense, sure. But it's not a great one. She had a responsibility to review those expenses, to question anything suspicious. The fact that she didn't, that she just approved everything Daniel put in front of her, makes her look either incompetent or complicit. She's not complicit. I'm just telling you what the prosecutors are going to argue. Whether it's true or not is a different question. After Chen hung up, I pulled up the original report I'd sent to Vanguard's board. The sections about expense account fraud, the examples of inflated bills and personal charges disguised as business expenses. I'd included specific examples, specific dates. Had any of those expenses been approved by Catherine? I didn't know. But if they had been, if her signature was on those approvals, she was in more trouble than I'd realized. I should have felt satisfaction. Catherine was facing consequences for her actions, just like Daniel. She'd chosen to have an affair with her boss, chosen to trust him, chosen to look the other way when things didn't add up. Now she was paying the price, but I didn't feel satisfied. I felt sick. I called Richard. "I need to do something," I said when he answered. "What kind of something?" "Catherine's being investigated. Federal prosecutors think she might have been involved in Daniel's embezzlement. She wasn't, but they're building a case anyway." "And you want to help her?" "Yes. Mark, you're divorcing this woman. She cheated on you for 6 months. Why would you help her?" "Because it's the right thing to do." "The right thing to do is let the legal system work. If she's innocent, she'll be fine." That's naive and you know it. Innocent people get convicted all the time, especially when prosecutors are determined to make their case. "What exactly do you think you can do?" "I can testify. I can tell them she didn't know about Daniel's crimes, that she was just another one of his victims." "Do you believe that?" I thought about Catherine at Rouge, laughing at Daniel's stories, holding his hand under the table. Thought about 6 months of lies and betrayal. Thought about all the ways she'd hurt me. "Yes," I said. "I believe she was a victim, just a different kind than Jennifer and the others." "Okay. Then I'll reach out to her lawyer and let them know you're willing to cooperate. But Mark, be careful. Once you testify, you become part of the investigation. They're going to ask you questions about how you know Catherine wasn't involved, about how you came to have information about Daniel's activities. You could open yourself up to scrutiny you don't want. I don't care. You should care. If they find out you broke into Daniel's office, if they find out about the keylogger, you could face charges yourself. Breaking and entering, unauthorized surveillance, maybe even theft of trade secrets. It's a risk I'm willing to take." Richard sighed. "Your funeral. I'll make the call." He hung up. I sat and thought about what I'd just committed to. I'd spent a week destroying Daniel, gathering evidence, planning revenge. Now I was offering to help Catherine, to put myself at risk to protect her. Why? Because she'd asked me to? Because I still cared about her despite everything? Because revenge had stopped feeling satisfying and started feeling empty? Maybe all of those things. Or maybe I was just tired. Tired of anger, tired of scheming, tired of being the person I'd become. Catherine's lawyer called me that afternoon. Her name was Jennifer Patterson, and she sounded both surprised and grateful. "Mark, thank you for reaching out. Catherine told me you two were divorcing. I wasn't sure you'd be willing to help." "I'm not helping Catherine. I'm helping the truth." "Fair enough. Can you tell me what you know about her involvement, or lack of involvement, in Daniel's activities?" Catherine didn't know about the embezzlement. She didn't know about the harassment. She was having an affair with Daniel, yes, but that doesn't mean she was aware of his crimes. "How can you be sure?" "Because I know her. I was married to her for 12 years. She's ambitious and she made terrible choices in her personal life, but she's not a criminal. She wouldn't have participated in fraud. The prosecutors have evidence showing she approved fraudulent expense reports. She approved expense reports her boss submitted. That's different from knowingly participating in fraud. You'd be willing to testify to that?" "Yes. Even though it might expose you to scrutiny. The prosecutors are going to want to know how you're so certain about Catherine's state of mind, how you came to know about Daniel's activities in the first place." "I understand the risks." "Okay. I'll let the prosecutors know we have a witness willing to testify on Catherine's behalf." "Thank you, Mark. This could make a real difference." After she hung up, I sat and thought about what I'd just done. I'd committed to testifying, to putting myself in the crosshairs of a federal investigation, all to protect a woman who'd betrayed me. Was I being noble or just stupid? My phone buzzed. A text from Catherine. "Jennifer told me what you're doing. Thank you. I don't deserve it, but thank you." I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. The next few days passed in a strange limbo. The investigation continued. More news broke about Daniel's crimes, and I waited for the prosecutors to contact me. They finally called Thursday afternoon. A woman named Sarah Chen, no relation to my investigator, who identified herself as an assistant U.S. attorney. "Mr. Easton, I understand you're willing to testify on behalf of Catherine Easton." "Yes." "Can you come to our office tomorrow? I'd like to take a formal statement." "I'll be there." "And, Mr. Easton, I should warn you that we're going to ask some difficult questions. Questions about your knowledge of Daniel Bishop's activities, about how you came to have that knowledge, about your relationship with your wife. If you have anything to hide, now would be the time to get a lawyer." "I don't have anything to hide. Everyone has something to hide. But okay, we'll see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. She gave me the address and hung up. I sat there feeling the weight of what was coming. Tomorrow, I'd walk into a federal building and answer questions under oath. Tomorrow, I'd either clear Catherine's name or destroy my own life trying. I called Chen. "I need you to do something," I said. "What?" "I need you to remove the keylogger from Daniel's computer, tonight if possible." "Why?" "Because I'm testifying tomorrow, and if they ask me about how I gathered evidence, I need to be able to say that any surveillance devices have been removed, that there's no ongoing illegal monitoring. Mark, removing it now doesn't change the fact that you planted it in the first place. I know, but it's something. Just do it, okay?" "Okay, I'll go tonight." After he hung up, I tried to prepare for tomorrow's questions, tried to figure out how to tell the truth without incriminating myself. But every scenario I imagined ended badly. Either I admitted to breaking into Daniel's office and faced charges, or I lied under oath and faced perjury charges. There was no good outcome, just different degrees of bad. But I'd made my choice. I'd chosen to help Catherine, consequences be damned. Now I had to live with that choice. I spent the evening reviewing everything I knew about Daniel's crimes. The expense reports, the offshore accounts, the harassment. All the evidence Chen had gathered through legal means. That's what I'd focus on. The legal evidence. The stuff that wouldn't get me arrested. And if they asked about the rest, about how I'd accessed Daniel's office, I'd tell the truth and hope for the best.